In a distant galaxy far away from Earth, there was a planet called Zorathia. It was ruled by the most powerful and mysterious being in the universe, Queen Nalara, a fierce alien with shimmering purple skin, glowing silver eyes, and wings made of stars. Her people, the Zorathians, were known for their intelligence and strength, but also their cold hearts. They believed they were superior to all other races in the galaxy. One day, something strange happened. A human ship, the Star Wanderer, got lost in space and crash-landed on Zorathia. Inside, only one human survived, the fearless rebel fighter Max Riker. He was known across the galaxy for his wild, daring escapades and his hatred of the Zorathians. Max had a plan to infiltrate their kingdom and take down their tyrannical rule. When Max was dragged before the Queen, he was prepared to fight to the death. But as he stood in the Grand Hall, facing Queen Nalara, something unexpected happened. Instead of the usual cold, calculating ruler, the Queen seemed curious. "Who is this human?" she asked, her voice as smooth as silk but full of power. Max, still defiant, shot her a sly grin. "I'm the guy who's going to destroy your whole empire." Queen Nalara raised an eyebrow, but she didn't react with anger. Instead, she studied Max closely. For the first time in her life, she felt something she couldn't explain, an intense fascination. "You speak with boldness, human," the Queen said, her silver eyes flickering. "What makes you think you can stand against me?" Max shrugged, not wanting to reveal too much. "Because I'm not afraid of you." The Queen smirked. "You should be. But there is something different about you. I can sense it." Max raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I feel a spark," Nalara said, looking him over. "I sense something in you that is unlike any other human I've encountered." Max chuckled darkly. "I think you're just bored of your people. But I don't have time for your games." The Queen stepped closer, her wings casting a soft, shimmering glow. "No, this is no game. I want to know more about you, human. I wish to see if your spirit matches your words." Max couldn't understand why he wasn't dead yet. But there was something in the Queen's eyes, something that made him feel oddly intrigued. Over the next few days, Max was kept in the royal palace, not as a prisoner, but as something else, a guest of sorts. While Queen Nalara continued to study him, she also started to learn more about humans. She discovered that Max had come to fight against the oppression of the Zorathians because of the suffering they had caused to many innocent species. Max, in turn, began to see the cracks in the Queen's perfect armor. She wasn't just a ruthless ruler. There were times when her eyes showed signs of loneliness, of someone who carried the weight of her people on her shoulders. He found himself feeling sorry for her, though he hated to admit it. One evening, while Queen Nalara was showing Max the grand gardens of the palace, filled with glowing flowers and trees that hummed with ancient energy, their conversation took a surprising turn. "I've been told humans are nothing but troublemakers," Nalara said, her eyes on a blooming tree that shifted colors in the night. "But now that I've met you, I wonder if there's more to you than they say." Max crossed his arms and watched her. "I'm just a guy doing what I think is right. You Zorathians, you don't understand the value of freedom." The Queen turned to him, her wings twitching slightly. "Freedom? That's something my people cannot afford. We are too powerful to let go of control. Without control, chaos would consume us." Max shook his head. "Control doesn't work when people are unhappy. You keep everyone in line through fear, but fear only lasts so long. What happens when your people decide they've had enough?" Nalara seemed to think about that. Perhaps you're right. But if I allow my people freedom, I lose my power. And if I lose my power, I lose my people." Max took a step closer to her. "Maybe power isn't what you need. Maybe what you need is trust." Thalara's eyes softened, but she quickly turned away, as if fighting an emotion she didn't want to acknowledge. "I will never trust a human. You're all the same." Max smirked. "Maybe I'm not like the others." For a moment, their eyes locked, and the tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. The moonlight glistened off the silver tips of Thalara's wings, and Max could feel his heart racing in his chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be drawn to her. She was the enemy, but as the days passed, something changed. The two started spending more time together. Max began to learn about the Queen's past, how she had been raised to be a leader from the day she was born, how she had never known true friendship or love. And despite her cold exterior, he began to see that the Queen wasn't as untouchable as she seemed. One night, Max sneaked out of his room and found the Queen standing alone at the edge of a cliff, staring out into the vastness of space. "Are you planning on jumping?" Max asked, stepping forward. The Lara didn't turn to face him. "The weight of my people's expectations is heavy. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever be free of it." Max walked up beside her. "You don't have to carry it all alone." For the first time, the Lara looked at him, and there was a vulnerability in her gaze. "And what about you? Are you really going to destroy me?" Max's heart pounded, but he didn't answer right away. He was torn. He was supposed to destroy the Zorathians, but the more time he spent with the Lara, the more he questioned everything he thought he knew about her people. "I don't know anymore," he finally said. The Queen sighed, and the two stood there in silence, staring at the stars above them. Suddenly, a group of Zorathian soldiers appeared, their eyes filled with suspicion. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "what is this human doing here?" Max tensed, but the Lara held up her hand. "He is no longer a prisoner. He is my guest." The soldiers exchanged glances, unsure of what to make of this. But the Lara didn't care. She was beginning to see Max not as a threat, but as someone who could help her understand what it meant to be truly free. The story was just beginning, and with the arrival of new threats from within the Zorathian Empire, Max and Thalara's bond would soon be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. Would their love survive the power struggles of the galaxy? Would they be able to unite their people, human and alien alike, against the forces that sought to tear them apart? The night was thick with tension. The soldiers who had come to challenge Max's presence in the Queen's quarters exchanged wary glances, but said no more. Thalara's command was absolute, and despite their confusion, they obeyed her without question. Still, the uncertainty in their eyes lingered. Max could feel the weight of their suspicion, but there was no turning back now. The Lara had defended him, and for the first time in days, he began to feel something other than anger and defiance. "Are you sure about this?" Max whispered, watching the soldiers retreat into the shadows. The Queen's silver eyes flickered, and she nodded. "Yes, I have seen enough to know that not all humans are the same." Her gaze lingered on him, soft yet unyielding. "You are not like the others?" Max didn't know whether to feel proud or confused. He was still a rebel, a fighter, and in his heart, he knew that everything he had once believed in, the fight against the Zorathian Empire, was being slowly unraveled by the presence of the one person he was supposed to hate. "Maybe I should get out of here before they send more soldiers," he said, forcing a grin, trying to lighten the mood. "Before they start thinking I'm your secret lover or something." Thalara's lips twitched with the faintest hint of a smile. "Perhaps that would be for the best. But you're no ordinary prisoner, Max. I can see that now." Max looked up at her, studying her face in the moonlight. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was more than that. It was the way she carried herself, both powerful and vulnerable at the same time. For someone who had everything, she seemed to carry a great weight on her shoulders. "I didn't come here for this," Max muttered. "I came to stop you, to destroy your empire. But you're not trying to do that anymore," the Lara said softly. Max didn't answer. He couldn't. Deep inside, he knew she was right. Every moment spent with her made the mission harder. His heart had begun to twist in ways he never expected. How could he bring himself to destroy her now? Suddenly, there was a loud bang from outside, followed by a rush of footsteps. Max spun around, instantly on high alert. What was that? Thalara's expression darkened. "Trouble." Max grabbed her arm, pulling her back toward the palace entrance. "We need to get you out of here." But the Lara shook her head. "No, stay with me. They will come for us both." Within moments, they were surrounded by Zorathian guards. But this time, the soldiers weren't just suspicious. They were ready to fight. And leading them was General Varnock, the most feared and ruthless commander in the Zorathian army. His black armor gleamed like polished obsidian, and his eyes glowed with cold fury. "Your Majesty," Varnock said, Bowing low, but with a look of disdain in his eyes as he turned his attention to Max, "I see you have a guest." The Lara stepped forward, her wings extending behind her in a show of power. "He is no guest. He is under my protection." Her voice was like ice, but beneath it, Max could hear something else, an edge of worry. "Protection?" Varnok's eyes flickered with contempt. "You defend this human while your empire crumbles? You disgrace Zorathia by showing weakness." Max clenched his fists. "Your empire already crumbles. It's only a matter of time before the people rise up." Varnok's lip curled in a cruel sneer. "Then you will die like all the others who have defied us?" Before Max could react, Varnok raised his hand, signaling for the guards to move in. But the Lara moved faster than any of them could react. In one swift motion, she summoned the energy of the stars themselves, her wings glowing brighter than the moon. The guards faltered, stepping back in fear. "I will not allow you to touch him, General," the Lara said, her voice filled with authority. Varnok's expression remained unchanged. "You can protect him for now, but the people will not tolerate this. Your weakness is becoming dangerous." "Let them come," the Lara said boldly. "If they wish to challenge me, let them. But they will face the full strength of the Zorathian queen." Max watched in awe as the queen's power swirled around her like a storm. The guards, while still tense, seemed to know better than to challenge her directly. Varnok's eyes flickered with a mixture of anger and fear, but he bowed low once more. "Very well, Your Majesty, but you will regret this. Mark my words." With that, he signaled the soldiers to leave. When they were alone again, Max exhaled in relief. "That was close." Thalara's wings slowly folded, the glow fading. "I can protect myself, Max, but not for long. Varnok will continue to challenge me until he finds a way to weaken me. And my people, they will question my decisions." Max shook his head. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But now, with you defending me, I feel like I put you in more danger than you were already in." Thalara's gaze softened as she stepped closer. "You think I cannot handle danger?" She smiled faintly. "You are wrong about me, Max. I may be a queen, but I am not untouchable. And the truth is I no longer wish to be. Not if it means protecting something or someone I believe in." Max's heart skipped. She was talking about him. For a long moment, they stood there, neither of them speaking. There were no more guards, no more threats. Only the quiet, unspoken bond between them growing stronger with each passing second. But the peace was fleeting. A sudden alarm blared through the palace, its shrill tone echoing through the corridors. Thalara's eyes widened. "It's begun," she whispered. Max clenched his fists, ready for whatever came next. "What has begun?" "The rebellion," the Lara said, her voice low but determined. "My people are rising against me, and it's all because of you." Max's heart sank. "I never wanted this to happen." The Lara looked him dead in the eyes. "I know, but now we must make a choice. Will we face this together, or will we allow this rebellion to tear us apart?" Max glanced at her, his mind racing. The rebellion was starting, but it wasn't just a fight between the Zorathians and the humans anymore. It was a fight between everything the Lara had built and everything Max had fought for. And as much as he wanted to escape, he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't leaving her side. "We face it together," Max said, his voice resolute. Thalara's silver eyes glistened as she stepped closer to him. "Then we must be ready. The battle is just beginning." And in that moment, Max knew that the fate of not just their two worlds, but the entire galaxy rested on their shoulders. The palace was in chaos. The blaring alarms echoed through the corridors of the royal palace on Zorathia. Soldiers ran in every direction, while the Zorathian citizens gathered outside, their murmurs rising into a frantic roar. Word had spread fast. Queen the Lara was protecting a human rebel, and the rebellion was no longer just a rumor. It was happening. Max and the Lara stood at the edge of the palace's grand balcony, looking out over the city below. The streets were alive with fire, the dark sky lit by bursts of energy as the rebellion began. Max could feel the tension in the air, the crackle of electricity that signaled the fury of the Zorathians rising up against their queen. "They're ready to tear this place apart," Max muttered, looking down at the crowds below. They were chanting, their voices full of rage and resentment. Thalara's wings shimmered as she extended them, her voice calm but heavy with sorrow. "They are not just angry with me, Max. They are angry with the rule that has kept them bound for centuries. I failed them by maintaining this tyranny." Max glanced sideways at her, noticing the quiet pain in her eyes. She was not the emotionless queen she had once appeared to be. He had learned that much over the past days. The Lara wasn't just a ruler. She was a person burdened with the weight of a broken kingdom. "They're going to come for you," Max said quietly. "And they're going to come for both of us." The Lara looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she stepped closer to Max. "Yes," she said, "but we can still change this. The rebellion, it isn't just about me. It's about freedom. And you've shown me that freedom is worth fighting for." Max's heart raced as he looked down into the sea of people below. He knew this was more than a fight for survival now. This was a fight for the future of both humans and Zorathians. If the Lara wanted to change her people's destiny, she would need help, and Max couldn't walk away from this. Not when it felt like they were the last hope for peace. "But we're outnumbered," Max said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "There's no way we can take on the entire Zorathian army. They're stronger, more advanced." Thalara's eyes glinted with determination. "We don't need to defeat them all. We just need to show them a different way. The Zorathians are ruled by fear, by power. But if we can win their hearts, show them that peace is possible, we might just have a chance." Max wasn't sure how she could possibly think that was possible. But when he looked at her, he saw something he had never expected: hope. In the darkest moments of the rebellion, when all seemed lost, she had found a reason to keep fighting. Before they could say more, the palace doors burst open. General Varnock stood there, flanked by his elite guards. His eyes burned with anger as he spotted Max, standing beside the queen. "You," Varnock growled, "you have brought shame upon us all. The Lara, a human rebel in the heart of our empire. You have betrayed your own people." The Lara stepped forward, her wings folding around her like a protective shield. "No, Varnock. I have not betrayed my people. I have seen that our empire cannot continue on this path. The people deserve more. I will no longer be a queen who rules by fear." Varnock's lips curled into a snarl. "Then you are no queen at all." His gaze flickered to Max, filled with hatred. "And you're the one who's been feeding these lies into her mind. You will pay for this." Max's hand instinctively moved to the hilt of his energy blade, but he knew there was no point in drawing it, at least not yet. The general was a force to be reckoned with. But Thalara's calm presence was like an anchor in the chaos. "Varnock," the Lara said, her voice steady. "You will not kill him. He is my guest, and I will protect him. And if you want to challenge me, you must go through me." Varnock's eyes narrowed. "I'll do more than challenge you, Queen. I will end this madness. And when I do, I will be the one to take your throne." For a moment, the two locked eyes, the tension between them palpable. But the Lara didn't flinch. Instead, she held her ground, the glow of her wings intensifying as she prepared for what was sure to come. "I will not let you destroy this empire, Varnock," she said. "Not with fear, not with violence." Varnock spat on the ground, his face contorting with fury. "Then you are a fool." Without another word, Varnock signaled to his soldiers. The room suddenly buzzed with energy, the ground shaking as they unleashed a wave of power at the two of them. Max dove to one side, pulling the Lara with him. They barely avoided the blast, but the force knocked them both to the ground. "Run!" Max shouted as he pushed the Lara to her feet. "We can't fight them all. We need to get to the underground chambers." The Lara hesitated, glancing toward the door where Varnock's soldiers were now advancing. "Max," she whispered, her hand gripping his arm tightly. "If I let this rebellion tear us apart, I will lose everything. But if we stand together, we might just have a chance." Max turned to face her. "Then we fight together?" Without another word, the two ran, dodging blasts from the Zorathian soldiers as they sprinted through the palace. Thalara's wings glowed brightly, shielding them from the attacks, while Max's quick reflexes allowed him to evade most of the blasts. They finally reached the underground chambers, a maze of tunnels that led deep into the heart of the city. Max knew these tunnels well. They were the perfect place to regroup and plan their next move. But as they descended further, something caught Max's eye, a glowing, pulsating crystal embedded in the walls of the tunnel. Valara noticed it too. "This is the heart of Zorathia," she said, her voice awed. "It's said to hold the power of the planet itself." Max's mind raced. "You said the Zorathians rule through fear, through power. What if we use this? What if we can harness this energy to show your people there's another way?" Thalara's eyes widened. "It could work, but it's risky. The heart of Zorathia has been dormant for centuries. If we awaken its power, it could either unite us or destroy everything." Max nodded. "It's a gamble, but we don't have many options left." Together, they moved closer to the glowing crystal. As Max reached out to touch it, a wave of energy surged through him, filling the chamber with a dazzling light. The crystal pulsed with energy, and for a moment, the entire city above seemed to hum with power. "This is it," Valara whispered. "The heart is waking. It's time to show them that a new future is possible." Just as they were about to leave the chamber and return to the surface, a voice echoed through the tunnels, a familiar voice. "You think you can change everything, Valara?" General Varnok's voice was low, filled with menace. "You're not the only one with power." Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them, and the tunnels began to collapse. Varnok was coming, and this time, he wasn't going to let them escape. The ground trembled beneath their feet, sending dust and debris falling from the ceiling. Max's heart pounded in his chest as the tunnels shook violently. He could hear Varnok's voice echoing through the chamber, his hatred clear even from a distance. "You think the heart of Zorathia will save you, Valara? You're wrong." Varnok's voice was cold, filled with contempt. "You've betrayed everything we've ever stood for, and now I will make sure you pay the price." Max grabbed Thalara's arm, pulling her toward the far side of the chamber, where the tunnel forked off into another passage. The walls were cracking, and the energy from the crystal was growing more intense by the second. The air itself seemed to hum with power. "We need to move," Max shouted. "If that crystal is about to go full power, it could bring the entire palace down." Valara, her silver eyes wide with determination, nodded. "Then we must hurry. Varnok's forces will be here any second." As they sprinted through the collapsing tunnels, the ground quaked beneath them. The walls groaned, and the crystal's pulsating glow was now almost blinding. Max could feel the raw energy in the air, an ancient, almost primal force that was far beyond anything he had ever experienced. Behind them, the sound of Varnok's soldiers grew louder, their boots crashing down the stone hallways. Max's mind raced as he glanced back over his shoulder. Varnok was not going to give up easily, and if they didn't get out of here soon, they would be trapped underneath the heart of the Empire, surrounded by enemies and falling debris. They emerged into another tunnel, this one narrower and winding, but it seemed to lead toward the surface. "Almost there," Max called, urging Valara to run faster. She was right beside him, her wings folded tight against her back to avoid the narrow walls. But there was something else in her eyes, a glow of determination that matched the power of the crystal. Max could feel it too, as if the very earth itself was alive with energy. The heart of Zorathia was awakening, and with it, the power of the planet itself. But that power wasn't just for Thalara. It was for everyone. "Max," Valara said between breaths, "do you believe it's possible? That we can really unite my people and the humans?" Max cast her a glance. "I don't know, but after everything that's happened after what I've seen in you, and in myself, I think we have to try." Valara looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the growing light of the heart. "Then we will. But we need to be prepared. Varnok and his forces will never accept it. They'll fight until the last breath." Suddenly, there was a loud crash from behind. Max whipped around, adrenaline flooding his veins, as the tunnel's entrance collapsed. But out of the dust and rubble emerged Varnock, his dark armor gleaming, his face filled with rage. "You won't escape me, the Lara!" Varnock's voice echoed through the tunnel as his soldiers rushed behind him. "You will fall, and so will this foolish human. You have no future, only a grave." Max's hand tightened around the handle of his energy blade. Thalara's wings stretched wide, glowing like starlight. "We don't need to escape, Varnock," she said calmly, stepping forward. "We are not afraid of you." Varnock sneered, raising his own weapon, a dark, jagged blade that crackled with energy. "Then face me, and if you survive, I'll let you lead a broken empire. But if not, Zorathia will belong to me." Max stepped in front of the Lara, his pulse quickening. "You're not taking her, and you're sure as hell not taking this planet. If you want to fight, Varnock, you've got one." The general's eyes narrowed as he charged forward, his weapon slicing through the air. Max blocked the blow with his energy blade, sparks flying where the two weapons met. Thalara's power radiated around them, creating a protective shield that reflected the deadly blast from the soldiers behind Varnock. But Varnock was relentless. He swung his blade again and again, each strike more powerful than the last. Max ducked and weaved, dodging Varnock's blows, his mind racing with strategies. Thalara's wings flared open, releasing a surge of energy that knocked back the soldiers charging toward them. She raised her hand, summoning the raw energy from the heart of Zorathia itself. The crystal in the chamber pulsed even brighter, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The power of the planet was now fully awake, responding to her call. "You cannot control it, the Lara," Varnock roared. "The heart is too powerful. It will destroy everything." Thalara's eyes gleamed. "I know it will, but it will destroy you first." With a sudden burst of energy, she sent a shockwave through the tunnel, propelling Varnock backward. His soldiers scrambled to catch their footing as the ground cracked beneath them. Max moved forward, pushing past Varnock's stunned soldiers. He didn't have time to waste. He was here for one reason: to protect the Lara and stop the madness before it tore apart Zorathia. Varnock struggled to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes. "You think you could defeat me with these tricks?" He raised his weapon high, preparing for a final attack. But the Lara was ready. As the general lunged, she met his charge with the full force of the heart's energy. A brilliant beam of light shot from her hand, clashing with his blade. The two forces collided with a deafening crack, sending shockwaves that shook the entire palace. The tunnel around them began to crumble, as if the very heart of Zorathia was rejecting the violence. Max jumped to Thalara's side, his energy blade ready. "Now," he shouted. Together, they combined their powers, Max's blade, charged with energy, and Thalara's will, harnessing the raw might of the planet. With one final, decisive strike, they overpowered Varnock's blade, sending him flying backward, crashing into the rubble. The tunnel began to collapse, and the soldiers scattered in fear as the ground beneath them shook violently. Varnock, barely conscious, glared up at the Lara. "You may have won this time, Queen," he spat, "but you will never win the loyalty of your people. They will rise against you." The Lara looked down at him, her expression cold but resolute. "I will not rule through fear, Varnock, but I will rule by showing my people that we can choose a different path." Varnock's eyes blazed with hatred, but he said nothing more as the earth trembled and the crystal's power began to wane. The battle was over, but the war was far from it. Max stepped forward, breathing heavily. "Is it over?" The Lara nodded, her wings slowly folding in. The power of the heart had subsided, and the ground beneath them stopped shaking. But the danger wasn't over. They had to face what was coming next. "They'll come for us," the Lara said, her voice softer now, filled with a mix of exhaustion and determination. "But we'll be ready." Max looked at her, and for the first time, he saw her not just as a queen, but as a person who wanted to change everything, just like he did. "Then we fight," he said, his voice firm. The Lara looked at him with those glowing silver eyes, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. It was just the two of them, warriors, rebels, and something more, united in the struggle for a new future.